Symposium. We are honored to have you all here. My name is Q-mars Haeri, and I'm working on Iranian theater and religious Iranian theater. I've now been in Baltimore for almost a year, having moved to Tehran, to the city, to continue my education. This is the second time that I have had the opportunity to be at the Baltimore Art Museum. Just like my first visit, this one will also be a very memorable event. I was thinking in these past days how much such institutions contribute to my education, my professional growth, and my knowledge. I was thinking how much the Walters Museum can change people's lives, like mine, who live in Baltimore, even for a short period of time. Today, I want to talk about a building, like the very building that we are standing in today, that affected people's lives by confronting them with arts and culture in my hometown, Tehran. I first became attracted to this topic for personal reasons. I love theater, and found out about an unusually beautiful and huge theater that was constructed in Tehran in the 1870s. I found out about its construction and demolition at the same time. It was destroyed long before I was even born, and this touched me deeply. How did it come to pass that the Persian king Nasser-ed-Din Shah had such a wonderful idea and put much money and effort into building it? What did he want out of it? How did this building help the life of theater in Iran? And then, regrettably, why was such a beautiful edifice destroyed? Didn't those who destroyed it not understand its crucial role in the aesthetic life of the city? Before I turn to these questions, let me briefly locate my story in space and time. So here you can see Iran in the Middle East, but also bordering Russia and Central Asian countries. Iran used to be the huge Persian Empire, and right up until 1979, it was ruled by various monarchies. In 1979, the last dynasty was toppled. The life of the building I'm going to focus on spans two kings in the last two dynasties, Nasser-ed-Din Shah Qajar and Reza Shah Pahlavi. We are now ready to turn our attention to the building. Takiyeh Dowlat, or the Royal Takiyeh, was the largest theater house in Tehran. Construction of the Takiyeh began in 1873. This was a revolution in Iranian engineering. It was the first time that iron beams were used in a building in Iran. They were utilized in order to house 20,000 spectators under one roof. In 5 years, in 1878, the construction was completed. After that, across the years, thousands of Tehranis and travelers would show up to watch beautiful plays with Shiite Iranian themes. They were moved by the stories on the set and cried over the tragic fate of the characters. The spectacularly large Takiyeh Dowlat allowed thousands of people to watch the plays together. Yet, in 1926, Reza Shah Pahlavi, the king who followed Nasser-ed-Din Shah, suspended the annual ceremonies at the Takiyeh Dowlat, let the building become run down, and allowed it to become a ruin. Eventually, the Takiyeh was demolished in 1946, when the building was 68 years old. In its place, they built a national bank that still exists. Most social scientific studies have identified Reza Shah as a central figure, and at times, in fact, the only figure responsible for modernization of Iran. I argue that Nasser-ed-Din Shah also had visions of modernity. However, he rarely receives credits because his particular vision of modernity was not as radical as that of Reza Shah. My thesis brings together debates on such visions and respective roles of the royal court, religion, and patronage of arts, using the Takiyeh Dowlat as case study. Let us begin with the question of why Reza Shah suspended the form of theater known as Takiyeh that has evolved in Iran across centuries, which were reenactments of important events in the history of Shiite Islam. As was clear from many other steps that he took, he felt that religious is an obstacle to the modernization of Iranian society. Being determined and despotic, he simply ordered the ceremonies to stop. But Nasser-ed-Din Shah saw value in theater whether it was religious or non-religious. Indeed, the mere existence of this theater helped greatly in promoting genres of theater such as comedy that had little to do with that had little to do with religion. And it is for this reason that I think he played a very important role as well in modernization. Support from the royal court in pluralizing forms of theater brought about creativity in all the arts that are related to theater. The emergence of this plurality is, in my mind, crucial for modernization. Let me now turn to providing some background on the religious ceremonies that I just mentioned, namely Takiyeh. Every year, Takiyeh Dowlat was host of the biggest event in Tehran, the commemoration of the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, the grandson of Prophet Muhammad. The enduring emotional force of his martyrdom has to do with the fact that Imam Hussein faced a much larger army in the desert. He became extremely thirsty. His child was watching. He was not given water and was beheaded. This is referred to as Battle of Karbala. The genre of theater that reenact episodes of this story are called Takiyeh. Takiyehs are often brought to stage in the open space of neighborhoods. At times, however, a special space was built for their annual performances, and such spaces were called Takiyeh. So what kind of king was Nasiruddin Shah who built the Takiyeh Dowlat, and what was his personality like? Nasiruddin Shah was in power for nearly 50 years. He was the first Iranian king who traveled repeatedly to Europe in order to acquire first-hand knowledge of that continent's peoples, cultures, and governments. Indeed, his often humorous travelogues are full of details of events, experiences, and analysis. He compares what he encountered in Europe with what was going on in Iran, and makes sense of matters for himself and the reader by repeatedly undertaking cultural translations. As is well known, royal courts across the cultures played crucial roles in the development of the arts, and Iran is no exception. Across centuries, Persian kings had consistently supported poetry, architecture, draftsmen, painters, and calligraphers. Up until the reign of Nasiruddin Shah, however, no political leader had given such visible support to theater. Nasiruddin Shah promoted, developed, and institutionalized the ritual Takiyeh theater by building the Takiyeh Dowlat. There is a fair amount of literature on the geopolitical context of that time, but what I am more interested in conveying in this presentation is something about the personality of the king and its contrast to the person who followed. Nasiruddin Shah was known to have a sense of humor, much curiosity, a lover of fun, and unconcerned with proving his macho and masculine side. I think you can tell he's not interested in appearing macho here. Indeed, Reza Shah was famously tough and masculine, and as an army general, believed in discipline and avoiding humor at all costs. Having come to power as a result of coup d'etat, he clearly had to establish his power by projecting a very masculine image. So now, to give you a better idea of the kind of person Nasiruddin Shah was and how it came to his mind to build this theater house, let's consider an example of the kind of cultural translations that are evident in his travelogues. You can see Nasiruddin Shah's familiarity with arts in his travelogues. He described carefully and in rich detail the plays that he attended. In his third travelogue, he describes going to see a play at Eden in Paris in 1891. Let me quote you. In this play, there was a strange crowd of actors and dancers, about 200 women, girls, men, and boys, with very high-quality clothes. The main point of the play is to bring out the opposition between ignorance and wisdom. One man wears black and had black in his face. This made him look like ignorance. A tall woman who was wearing a beautiful dress represented wisdom. These two, without talking to each other, communicated with gestures. It should be noted that the expression in Persian referring to ignorance and wisdom is a pair that receives explicit comments in Shiite philosophy, something akin to the good and the bad angels. This is an interesting act of unself-conscious translation on the part of the king. He took something within a largely Christian context and fluently translated it into what he knew from his own country's cosmology. In the interest of time, I will not go on to give more examples, but what is clear is that he did not see Europeans in a negative light and as alien beings. He saw similarities and differences, and was attracted to a great deal in his travels. He did not seem to have the Reza Shah complex vis-à-vis Europe, seeing Iran as insufficient and backward. In part for this reason, his initiatives did not aim to borrow wholesale from Europe, but instead to promote and develop further what was already there. Now that I have given you an idea of the king who built the Takiyeh and his visions, I want to go back to the theater house, Takiyeh Dowlat, as a space that embodied such visions and promoted various genres of theater. Recall that a Takiyeh was historically built for the purpose of reenactment Imam Hussein's martyrdom. So if we take this as face value, we would imagine that the Takiyeh Dowlat remained forever a space devoted exclusively to the performance of a religious ritual. However, what gradually and eventually ended up being performed on the stage was far more diverse and plural than merely religious themes. Given the broad possibilities for the use of the space, new ideas emerged for public performances. Historical documents, like the posters dated 1881 to 1885, related to the golden age of Takiyeh, show that gradually there appeared performances that took stories different from the Battle of Karbala and the usual themes of Takiyeh. For example, there were plays about lives of Moses or Solomon. Another genre of theater that appeared was comedy. A royal court official watching one of those comedies wrote, quote, "Women's laughter was heard from the upper floors even more than one would hear in European theaters," unquote. And there appear plays that were uniquely acted by women. Before the Takiyeh Dowlat, the only potential for a large gathering in a single public space typically occurred only in grand mosques or public squares. In those mosques, in most cases, women's spaces were on the upper floor, whereas in Takiyeh Dowlat, women filled the seats nearest to the stage and men had to sit in the back. The building was instrumental in changing attitudes toward the role of women in public life. Under conditions in which women had few visible social roles in the city, allocating a special entrance to the Takiyeh and also giving them the first floor, meaning the best seats, could be seen as a major change. More importantly, what was quite radical and novel was the fact that women were allowed to go on the stage and perform for women. In England, in the late 17th century, were women allowed very gradually to perform certain roles on stage. Although in Iran this happened in late 19th century and the audience were only women, still the possibility of creating a class of female actors was unprecedented. I now move to the conclusion of my presentation. In my thesis, I made the argument that Nasseruddin Shah, whose role in modernizing Iranian society has rarely been acknowledged, is in fact one of the first modernizers. He initiated this process not by wholesale importation of everything that was European, but by offering resources to that which was already available in Iranian culture. In the case I presented, the king built a huge and lavish theater that could create an educated spectatorship in a short time, because the theater could house 20,000 people out of a population of 100,000 in that time, Tehran. The mere existence of such a theater, along with support given to actors, prop makers, scriptwriters, and so on, gave rise to the promotion of several genres of theater, including female-owned plays. Such artistic and social changes that began with the space that was meant to bring to the stage a religious ritual comprised, I argue, parts of the beginning of modernization in Iran. I see a relation between these kind of social changes and what Marc Auger had argued about modernity and supermodernity. For Auger, modern spaces do not erase the past, they in fact include, and integrate it, whereas supermodern spaces, such as supermarkets and airports, leave not a trace from the past of the society in which they are located. The significance of Takiyeh Dowlat lay in its ability to integrate the past and move forward. Thank you.